Hello and welcome to another update video about Bitcoin. Bitcoin has seen today that volatility that we were watching for. I warned you earlier today that we have to expect volatility due to the inflation data. Obviously, there was volatility. It is still, though, overall a pretty boring market at the moment because we are just again in a range, right? So yesterday, it looked as if Bitcoin could already Bitcoin broke out of the local range. I was talking yesterday about this sort of sideways range here, the 48-hour range, you could say, that developed between Monday and, late Tuesday. And or you could even argue between Sunday and late Tuesday. And the price did break out, but couldn't sustain, reach the previous or the next breakout point, the next resistance level, couldn't break above it. Made a slightly higher high, but then broke down again. So we are pretty much again in this range. We haven't broken support, so the support levels are still holding. But yeah, that's what many people call boring because it's just moving sideways. And yeah, we haven't made any progress really. It is certainly something interesting for day traders here at the moment, given that there has been quite a lot of volatility, right? Something that you won't find in other asset classes necessarily intraday. So we want to talk about the structure here. And earlier today in one of these signals to gold members, I highlighted that it's likely that Bitcoin is going to form one more low. Well, this here might have been that one more low, the 7 p.m. wick to the downside, but maybe it just needs one more low. It broke above this trend line, but that trend line is very steep. So these very steep trend lines, they are sometimes not so relevant. Here we have something that looks a bit more like a wedge pattern, out of which the price has not yet managed to break out. So we'll delete the red trend line. Important to point out that this, again, is just a diagonal pattern. And I can't stress it enough that these diagonal patterns, they are not trustworthy, okay? You can't trust them. They are very, very, they like to change their structure. There are always several ways how a diagonal pattern can be labeled. This is different to an impulse where we are dealing with a very, very clear structure where you will find a wave count that most Elliott Wave analysts agree on. In a diagonal pattern, not really. You will always find the people who label this as a 1-2-1-2 setup, which hopefully, as you can see now, is not happening. So a 1-2-1-2 setup is typically not the way to go. It is more often a diagonal pattern, especially if the first rally is as long as the second rally. So it has more this like ABC look, which could then carry on to the upside in a diagonal pattern. But yeah, I mean, what exactly diagonal patterns are, we have a lot of information on that in our membership on Discord. We talked about it a lot here on the YouTube channel as well. It is basically just a 5-wave pattern, which you can't trust until the 5 waves are complete. So you have to be vigilant. And then when the 5 waves are completed, then the next pullback could be an opportunity. From an Elliott Wave point of view, only when these 5 waves are completed, waves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're still in wave 3 in the white scenario, only when these 5 waves are completed, I can confirm that a substantial low has formed here on the 5th of August. Because if we don't get the 5 waves, this could simply be a corrective rally. This is not so evident if we're dealing with an impulse, because impulses are quite clear. But if we're dealing with a diagonal, you never really know, because diagonals could easily be mistaken for corrective rallies or the other way around. So this could easily just be a corrective rally and we break down. Yeah, it's best to treat it as if the price could really fall from the sky until we get these 5 waves up completed. Now, that doesn't mean you have to wait for all 5 waves to make a trade. Where you make a trade depends on your trading plan. I showed you yesterday how some of these moves can be traded. Like, we had a trend line breakout here. I mean, some people might have gone long here, which was successful. And there was another trend line breakout here. We had several reactions to the support region here. And some people might have just scaled into support. Others might have entered a short trade earlier today up here, when, for example, this trend line broke. I mean, again, there are many ways how this could be approached from a trading point of view. Just whatever you're doing, don't make any emotional decisions, and please be aware that this is a structure that is still very fragile. As I mentioned also in the previous updates, chaotic price movements here are still very, very likely. And that's always the case when we're dealing with these diagonals. All the altcoins are pretty much quite boring at the moment because I think they're all just waiting for Bitcoin to make a move. So I think there are only really like 1 or 2 altcoins that are really interesting at the moment, like Sui, for example, has a nice setup. Yeah, I can't actually think of another one because none of them have formed 5 waves up yet. Sui is the exception. There might be 1 or 2 that I actually haven't, I'm not tracking maybe, but yeah, most altcoins are just moving sideways at the moment, pretty much like Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is still leading the market. Bitcoin dominance is still high. So we're still waiting for that moment when the altcoins could potentially take over. So that's not happened yet. So we can only analyze what we can see right now, and Bitcoin is still leading. So this is still the thing to go with. The Bitcoin chart is still the way to go. It's still what we need to follow primarily. And the video views prove it. People aren't really interested in altcoins at the moment, not so much. Well, that might change, as soon as we get those 5 waves up, and maybe then the altcoins start to make more movements as well. I would say that as soon as Bitcoin is starting to break above this green line, well, if it does that around 61,550, then maybe the altcoins will become a little bit more interesting as well. And in terms of microstructures, the idea is that this here was a B wave low in wave 3. And this C wave could be unfolding right now. This microstructure has morphed a little bit. It's now considered a 1-2 setup in a wave C of 3, but it's close to invalidation and very close to resetting the larger B wave. So bottom line is, this is the key support area. It's between 58,555 and 56,280. It is offering some support for a B wave pullback. Whether we've already started the C wave and this is a 1-2 setup, or wave B is still unfolding, this zone is there to offer support. Any break below 56,280 will have bearish implications, because it could lead to invalidation of this white wave count. And then the bearish scenario will become more likely, which allows for a drop down to 43K. That's the update about Bitcoin. Hope you liked the update. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And if you really like the content, then please check out the channel membership. Also, make sure that you follow us on Instagram and Twitter for additional content. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.